First of all, I want to thank everybody who's here today. It's not Black History Month, snow came, but it's still equally important whenever we celebrate this, and so I welcome everybody for being here, and thank everybody on the committee who made this happen. This doesn't happen without our employees, and I'm really proud of the work our employees do. I don't think our employees get the respect they deserve often enough, and I just want you to know that I do appreciate the work you've done, and I'm happy to work with you, and I think we found a lot of really great leaders among you. I want to thank Tom Manger for his long service as police chief in Montgomery County. I want to thank Kathy Matthews and her bodyguard, but particularly Kathy Matthews, because she's been like a real stalwart in the Up County, and I do appreciate the work you do every day, and James Stowe for his work. We've got a lot of good people in the right places in the county, and I'm really happy to be county executive of all this. I got to say, I want to say something about the Star Spangled Banner, because you're talking about history today, and I thought it was interesting that you got a blues rendition of the Star Spangled Banner, because Star Spangled Banner is kind of a bittersweet song. It's the song about, fighting off the British and saving the nation. And the guy who wrote it and the lyrics in the song are also about preventing the liberation of slaves in America by the British. And, when we talk, about history and remembering the role of history, this is a complex story. And this song is born out of American history, which has its upsides and it certainly has its downsides, and we need to understand both, and it's important to be able to talk about them. When I was looking at this year's themes, Black Migrations, I think of the Jacob Lawrence series of paintings, and they're still down at the, I guess my favorite art museum in DC. And they're really moving. I'm sure most of you have seen them, and they don't have the whole series up there, but I've seen various parts of the series in different places, and it's a powerful story of the migration of black workers from the South into the North, and it captures everything from the elation and the excitement of coming north to the trials of leaving people behind, and also the horror of what you were leaving behind. And so the migration or migrations have played an important role in history, and I think Lawrence captures them pretty well. I lived through a different migration. I was born in D.C. in 1949 in Freedman's Hospital in D.C., and my parents chose Freedman's for political statement purposes because I came out of what would now be called the progressive household. And I was in a neighborhood by Coolidge High School that in the space of 5 years, from 54 when I started kindergarten to 1960 when I moved to Silver Spring, went from an all-white neighborhood to an all-black neighborhood. And the migration of people coming up to take jobs and get jobs and opportunities in the federal government was a wave that went through DC, and unfortunately in our history, we weren't able to accommodate it as two people living together. The movement in of some people led to the movement out of other people, but the people who moved in were as professional as the people who moved out. My dad was a postal clerk. The people who lived in my neighborhood worked in federal government jobs, same status, same professional ability as my father had. And when they came up here, they went as far as the Silver Spring border and could not go beyond that border because Silver Spring and Montgomery County were largely segregated. I mean, the history of this county, that whole neighborhoods had covenants saying you couldn't sell a house to a black or a Jew, and you certainly weren't renting to one. One of the first integrated neighborhoods is Rosemary Village over on East-West Highway, but most of the other neighborhoods were segregated. And so you have this irony of a migration that comes up, and the wave hits the shore and lands in D.C. and cannot move beyond D.C., and that's in my lifetime. And so migrations are things of the far past, but they're also part of our living past. And I think it's important that all of us are able to think about it and realize, what it means for America and what it means for where we are now. My administration has said, and one of the things I said when I campaigned, is that we were going to do racial equity lenses in Montgomery County. And this is not another exercise in diversity. This is an effort to come to terms with the differences, the longstanding differences, and opportunities that have been availed to the black community versus other communities, and that are deeply ingrained in society. So it's not just a matter of what's the representation of one group or another group in any particular job or department of government, but it's trying to understand how growing up in America and living in America in a segregated and still sort of racist society, to be blunt, how that impacts people throughout their entire lives. And but I tell people that I've become increasingly aware of, and not just because my grandkids are African Americans with a Nigerian father, but because this is what I was raised with, that being a white guy, I never had to think about being white, right? Never went into a job interview and said, what do these people think about me, based on only the fact they look at me and see the color of my skin. Never walked into a store and had to think about, what do people think about me? What do they think I'm going to do because of what I look like? Occasionally, because my hair was long, there were assumptions made. But, I could change my hair, right? I could cut my hair and put on a suit and tie. I could be like everybody else. Other things don't go away that easily, and you don't want them to go away. Everybody is who they are. And so I've been trying to talk to people about, we all need to think about what's different, and we need to understand the reason why we've got to go deeper than just simply making sure we are represented in proportion to our population, but that we understand the problems and the struggles that people face at a deeper level. That when we're doing our healthcare programs, and I don't know if Art Williams is here today, but Art and the folks in the African American Health Program, we had this long discussion about what's equitable. And I kept saying, but we provide proportionate services. We look at the number of people who have hypertension or diabetes, and we make sure all communities get proportionate services. And they kept saying, but that's not equitable. And I kept saying, what's equitable? And they kept saying, that's not equitable. And after about a half hour of going back and forth, they said, you do realize that African Americans live on average 8 years less than the white population. And you could adjust for diabetes, hypertension, diet, you could adjust for everything else. And the difference is still there. And that the problem is that having to live with a lifetime of stress and thinking about who you are and what people think about you places a burden on people throughout their entire life. And that is one of the factors that affects long-term health in the community. And in all the years I've been on the council, no one ever framed it that way. And that's the kind of stuff we've got to get to look beyond the superficial and the obvious and ask ourselves what else is going on in our community and our society. So I want to let you know that in Black History Month, and trying to honor this, that we are not just going to honor the history. You cannot change the past. You can sure as hell change the future. And we've got to commit ourselves. So I'm committed to leading us into a different future in Montgomery County, and I'm going to count on your help in helping make this possible. We've got to talk differently, we've got to talk honestly, and we've got to address problems up front and seriously. And as long as I'm county executive, that's what I'm going to do. My goal is to make this a more equal and more just society. I will be constantly reminding people of our history and our past, because if we don't understand it, we will not be able to make sense of where we are today. So I want to close by saying I want to thank you again for putting this on. Thank you so much, and I look forward to working with all of you.